Hello everybody, this is Miss T. I'm coming back. We're on the last son of Noah, which is Japeth. Um, so we're going to go over some things that we've talked about before and what the Bible says and what man says. There's not much that I found about Japeth. I did find that he had sons, and their names were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tyrus. And his descendants settled in the same areas that his brothers did, closer to Egypt and the Euphrates River, along the Euphrates River. And what I found fascinating is, like I said before, there's nothing mentioned in the Bible about race and skin color. I mean, it's skin color is mentioned like dark. I said before, dark, to describe someone who might be dark, but it does not say white or Caucasian. It doesn't say black. It doesn't say Chinese or anything. It has nowhere in the Bible. But a group of men, you know how we, because people have studied certain things and got degrees on certain things, we take their word as the gospel, literally, but it's not. They came together and decided that since Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives were the only ones left on the earth after the flood, that their 3 sons had to be born different colors, which makes no sense. I don't, especially since it doesn't mention that in the Bible. I believe if God wanted us to know how he made everybody different, he would have said in the Bible, Noah's son Ham was born dark and with coiled hair, or his son Japeth was born light with, he would have let us know. So we're not going to speculate and what's in the Bible. So it does not say that they were all different colors. Furthermore, they were born from the same parents, so I don't know why they would be different colors. And also what the scientists are missing, or I'm sure they didn't miss, they just didn't mention, is I believe the flood was 1656. So it was 1,656 years after Adam and Eve were made. So in between that day and the flood, other people were born. So Noah had a father, Noah had a grandfather, Noah had his wife had. So why would they not carry on the lineage? It did. I mean, they probably, their people had been born and passed on or whatever. They're making it sound like he wiped off everyone off the face of the earth, and nobody existed. If that was the case, he would have said, Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, and I destroyed the garden and everything in it and started over. But that's not what happened. Like I said, the flood was 1,656 years after Adam and Eve. So that could not possibly be the case. Also, what I found interesting is, like I said, when you go to Google, it gives you information, but it also gives you false information. I don't know if it's just how you word something or how I don't know. But it will tell you that there is nowhere in the Bible that says anything about race. But then it will turn around and tell you that Japeth, well, it'll say Shem was of, I believe they call it yellow skin or Asian descent. Ham was dark skin or black, and Japeth was white. How can there's no mention of skin color? So why do we then turn around and say this is what these people are? Furthermore, they all, when they ventured and started their new lives wherever they were going to settle, it was all in the Middle East. And it doesn't mention Europe, doesn't mention Greece, because they, put in the book that Cleopatra, her ethnicity was Greek, and that's not even an ethnicity. So there was no China, no America. These names were not even in the Bible. So you can't make up places or names that don't even exist. You can't be from Europe if there's no Europe. It does list in the Bible what cities or what continent or what countries or whatever are listed in the Bible. And like I said, they're all in the Middle East, but they forget to tell you that it's like they want to separate. It's like they separated the Middle East. They still called every other city that was during the Bible times, they called every other city in the Middle East except Africa. They even called Egypt in the Middle East. And I think that's because they wanted to be able to say that, okay, it might not have been Caucasian people, but it wasn't black people. Egypt was very far in advance. They invented a lot of things that are used to this very day. They were a structured people. There was a lot of things that other people have learned from Egypt and the things that they have, done. So they, like I said, when there's artifacts and things that they've created that were defamed, because you can obviously see the structure, the faces, and what they look like, and they were not Caucasian faces. I don't know, like I said, I don't know when we separated as race, and it could be done because God can do anything. I don't know that if because of sin, people who went this way or that way or whatever way might have adapted to the climate that they were located in. But it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make it important for me to know, because the Bible is not a quiz, or you study for an exam or any kind of book like that. It tells you stories that happen. It tells you what happened to people who disobeyed God. It tells you what happened to people who were faithful to God. And it also tells you how you're supposed to live, what God is expecting of you. And then it gives you things to uplift you, like in Psalms, you can read songs and poems or something uplifting that, you can turn to. I used to just turn to Psalms. I didn't even pick a page. I would just open it up, and then whatever I landed on, I would read, and it would fit for what I was needing for that day. So the Bible is a lot of things. Like I said, everyone should be reading the Bible. So and of course there are going to be people that said the white man wrote the Bible and blah 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 blah. They didn't write the Bible. What they did was they took, and I don't believe it was white men. Well, I guess maybe remove some things that they felt were not important, or they felt it didn't fit in the Bible. It made it look. They wanted things that were nice and pretty and made people happy, but like I said, God's not one to be played with. There were things in the Bible that were scary that happened. There's things in the Bible that are scary that are going to happen. But why take them out? We have to know everything. We have to know, the situation that we're in and what we need to do to make it into heaven. What we need to do to protect ourselves from Satan and his followers. Constant prayer, constant studying, and removing yourself. Do not plant yourself in places that you shouldn't be. You can't fight the devil if you go on his playground. He has the upper hand. So there's other things there's other things in the world to do other than wrong, or things that other people are doing and you want to join because you want to fit in. You don't want to be singled or seem like the outcast. And like I said, when people say they believe in God, that's fine until you actually believe in God. Then they think you're crazy. When you talk about God all the time, when you say that this happened, or this happened to me, and God, then they think you might be a little bit off. So I don't know everyone's walk of life with the Lord. I just know mine. And when like I said, well, I'm not going to keep saying that, but when I chose to walk with the Lord, I wanted to know and give up everything that wasn't of him. And believe me, it's not easy. And believe me, I fall and have to ask him to get me back up. I'm still working on the part where you should love everyone, even if they don't love you. I'm still working on that. But God knows my heart. He knows everybody's heart. So if you're trying to serve him and there's things that you just feel like you can't get over or can't, he knows inside that you want to and you're trying. And he will help you. So since I can't seem to either love people who do not love me, or treat me bad, or try to provoke me, I should not put myself in those situations. And sometimes it's hard. I ask God, please don't put me in predicaments where I have to make a decision, and if I do, please let me keep you with me at all times. I also do not like bullies, and I always find myself getting into things that I probably shouldn't, because I don't like to see other people bullied, and I don't like to see other people hurt. And so I have put myself in certain situations in that case. But it, I don't know. God, like I said, He wouldn't put me in harm's way or allow me to stay in harm's way if I'm doing what He asked me to do. So I'll get back to the people think you're crazy, but that's fine, because no one on this earth cares about me like God. No one cares about my eternal fate but God. No one can put me in heaven but God. So if you want to think that I'm crazy, if you want to think that I whatever, that's fine. I just know that ever since God came into my life and I decided to turn away from the world and do what He asked me, my life has been way better, so much better. I feel peace and comfort. There's been times when I've had no one. My mom had passed away. My mom was my best friend. My grandmother was my best friend. And then my mom's best friend became my best friend when my mom passed away. So all of them are gone. And so I was going through something and I had nobody, absolutely no one. You have people around you, but people go on with their lives and they're really not concerned. Well, I'm not going to say everybody, but when you've lived your life and people look at you like your life is together, they never think anything goes wrong with you. So you got everything under control. Everything's cool with you. They come to you for everything needed, borrow money, food, whatever. You've always been there, and that's what type of person I am, just naturally. So when you fall on hard times, they don't really think that it's that serious. And that's my fault too, because I didn't really reach out. I'm a person, I'm quiet. I like to keep things inside. And so if you don't reach out, or you don't ask for help, or you don't call out, how would people know? So I'm not blaming the people around me. This is just what happened. And maybe God put me in that predicament so that I could only depend on Him. But like I said, that through that time, I had no one but Him. And if you think it was just like I prayed, no. He actually was there. And no, He did not talk to me like having a conversation. And no, I didn't see Him sitting next to me having a conversation. I felt He surrounded me with the love and the comfort that I felt while I was going through what I was going through. I don't think once when I got into a situation that God didn't deliver me from, that He didn't take me out of it. And I'm going to share this. I am a little transparent because I want to be able to have people relate to me. If you're going through something, if I went through something and maybe that's what you're going through right now, that there's hope, that you can find hope or believe that there's hope. But this was a few years ago. I had bought my house when I was younger. And when you're young, you're not really you don't really think a lot about certain things. So anyways, I was going through a lot, and I got behind in my mortgage, and I didn't care. I was going through, I was in I didn't care about nothing. I just didn't care. And so they were getting ready to put me in foreclosure. and I still didn't care. I was thinking of looking for, apartments or to rent, whatever, because I didn't care. I don't know, I just didn't care. And then one day, I don't even know how or what, I just said, well, this was my logic. I don't feel like having to go through trying to find a place and all this stuff. So then I decided I'm going to try to stay in the house, but I don't know how because I'm thousands of dollars behind. So God put in my mind that I didn't know who to call or anything, but I got this paper that says, believe it or not, in the mail, if your house is about to go into foreclosure, call us at. So I called, and I was talking to a lady, very nice lady, and so what she wanted to do was discuss how I became in this predicament, and I was letting her know, but I had to explain to her why I wasn't paying my mortgage, but I was still paying my tithe or returning my tithe. And the woman said that I didn't have to explain to her. She knew exactly why I did. She believes in God and and I was approved. My house, they paid my mortgage, and I was able to keep my house. Like I said, he will bring you through whatever. Now, first of all, I never asked anybody for help. Maybe it was a little bit of pride, or maybe it was a little, and more of that they wouldn't have been able to give me that kind of money. So I never told anybody what I was going through. So I just handled it on my own. But like I said, God gave me that letter in the mail, had me call that number to get on the phone with that lady who happened to be a Christian. I don't call myself a Christian. I'm just a follower of God. I don't put myself under any title. Who believed in God and worshipped him also. And so I don't know if she looked at me like I was being a faithful servant, even though I was drowning, and I was about to lose my house, that I was still praising the Lord and giving thanks to him and returning my tithe. And so it worked all out for me. He's brought me through some other things, a lot of things. I'm not making it light of that, but and I know I always go off track, but I just want people to understand how that the Lord, he's the only way. He's the only way that you're going to make it through what is ahead of us, what's going to happen, the things that are going to happen. It's going to be hard to get, some things are going to be scary. Some of the things are going to be hard. Some people are going to turn against you. People, the world is getting more evil. You're going to find yourself in certain situations that you would never think that you were involved in. And I'm going to go back and do some uploads about being safe. I have some earlier ones. So I hope that if you're just new to the channel, or if you haven't listened to all my uploads, that you go back. I have some how to be safe, how to keep your kids safe, how to protect yourself when you're pregnant, and a lot of other things. But I'm going to do an upload on how to pray and some other things. But when people, I believe we have a misconception, and I think that's why a lot of our people have turned away from the white man's religion. That's what they call it, the white man's religion, because they believe they wrote these things, and they wrote it for themselves. It doesn't pertain to us, because they said in the Bible, it says, then why does it say obey your masters? Because you took something that, well, not you, they took something out of the Bible and just used that. You can't just take us, you have to read the script, what was ahead, what was before it, what was in the middle, what was after. You can't just take a sentence out of the Bible and say this is what the Bible says and that means we can do it, because that's how people use the Bible to for their own use, for their own good. Men in certain, or whatever, I don't even know, what is it Mormon? I don't even know what the name of these people are, who believe that it's okay to marry young girls, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and have many wives. Well, in the Bible, there is a story about King Solomon, the smartest man. He was a wise man, and he had many, many wives. That's in the Bible, but that's a story about him. It didn't say God said he could. It didn't say this is what God's plan is. That was just a story about a man who was in the Bible, and that's what he did. You have to understand, most of the time, the people, after Adam and Eve, sin was becoming rampant. It wasn't as horrible as it is now because of all the technology and all the other things, but they were still doing the same things that we are doing. And so just because it's in the Bible doesn't give, God did not give the stamp of approval. He didn't say this was okay for you to do. There is a story in the Bible about Lot, and when they escaped, him and his daughters escaped because his wife was turned into a pillar of salt. He didn't trust or believe that he wasn't faithful. He didn't have enough faith to believe he was protected. So him and his daughters went and lived in a cave. Well, it was just them all alone. And his daughters felt that they weren't going to ever have kids because there were no men around. And so the story goes, they got their father drunk and both of them got pregnant by him. So men can use that to say it's okay to molest your daughters. No, it's not. That was a story about Lot and his daughters. And if you continue to read it, you will find out what happened to their lineage. There is stories about Mary Magdalene, who was a prostitute, and just, all kinds of stories. But these are stories. These are not what God said. This is what you're okay to do, because of course that's ridiculous if you would believe that God would approve a man molesting his child. And I know that common sense, I know people aren't that well-minded people are not that delusional to believe that. But you just have to, when you open up the Bible, you have to ask God to give you have to give you understanding, so you will understand, or that you can understand what you're reading and what he's telling you. And basically what I do is I do read the stories, but I go off of God's 10 commandments. I go off of what he tells exactly. I'm going to have to get this. Is it in it's in a different scriptures. He reminds you of who will not be in heaven. And if you're doing anything on that list of people who will not be, then you better stop doing it. So he gives you exactly what you need to do and what it takes to get to heaven. No ifs, ands, or buts. No puzzles. No um, choose A, B, or C. None of that. He tells you straight out what you need to do, and if you don't do it, what's going to happen to you. You don't need another person to tell you that. You don't need another man. You don't need to tell another man that you've been doing this and you're trying to stop. By Jesus' name, you can go to God. And I always wondered why when I was taught to pray that at the end of the prayer, I say, in Jesus' name. Now I know. But before I go, I'm going to go back to Japeth. And I also found it interesting that they really didn't say a lot about him, and I don't know if it was because they couldn't put a lot, because they know what they were saying was not the truth. Because they had a lot to say about Shem. Shem's lineage led all the way down to Jesus. They had a lot to say about Ham, because Ham was cursed. He was a black man and he was cursed. That's not even true. He wasn't cursed. His son Canaan was cursed. Now, if you want to understand why God cursed his son instead of him, you can go back and read the story. Me telling you what I feel is not the same as getting your own understanding. So then, like I said, it doesn't say much about Japeth. It tells you the people, his sons and on, but it doesn't say, any stories or what if he did anything. Evidently, he didn't do anything horrible or anything bad, because he was Caucasian. Caucasian, not Caucasian, because Caucasian's not in the Bible. He was white. Not white because skin color was not mentioned in the Bible, or not skin color, but ethnicity was not mentioned in the Bible. It just gives you location of where these stories happened, tells you where certain things went on, like Jesus's birth, where he lived, Bethlehem, just all kinds of things. And I would like to say, if the white man wrote the Bible, I think he would have taken out, well, they wouldn't even started. It just would say everything would be the way they, wanted to. The Garden of Eden was located, but they really couldn't, because those places were not even invented. If you go into the Bible, it will explain to you what Jesus looked like. It doesn't say he was black, white, whatever, but it tells you what he looked like. And his feet were like copper. His hair was white, like and felt like wool, or looked like wool. I believe it also says his eyes were like fire, but I don't know. I don't understand what that would mean. It could mean that he was a loving person, but don't play with him. So I hope that you will go into Genesis and then move on to Exodus. There's some other chapters in the Bible that are important to read. But those are good places to start. I think I'm going to move into Exodus, because I believe that's some of the place where we need to know. People are debating about meat, not eating meat. He said we could eat meat. He did away with, in the New Testament, he did away with everything that was in the Old Testament, and so on and so forth. I have a problem with that, because it says God, it does never change. He never changes. So I'm going to be reading about that. And there are things, he even tells you what you can eat and not eat. But people don't listen to that either. I thought, we as a people in the Bible days, or I'm not going to say we, but as the people in the Bible days, if you notice over in that area that they don't eat pork, you never see a pig slaughtered. At least I haven't. If you have that, you can let me. Slaughtered and eaten. And I find that, not find it amazing or find it, because that's what God said do. Not to eat is a pig. We didn't get introduced to that until we were in captivity. And that's what they fed us. And it wasn't even the good parts of the pig. It was parts that they were throwing away. And that's what they gave us to eat. So if you're one of those people that always say, I don't want to do what the white man says, I don't know, well, don't eat pork, because that's what he said you're going to eat. You're going to eat this slop. We're going to give you the insides, the feet, the nose, the ears, and the skin. We're going to eat the ham, the pork chops, and all the other good parts, so-called good parts, because even when I ate pork, which was several years ago, and I didn't eat it for long, because when I was a child, we weren't allowed to eat pork. My mom didn't let us, so I really never knew what it tastes like. But when you get older, you're free. I'm going to do what I want. So I did, and I didn't like it. The only thing that I guess I did say I liked was pork sticks. I never liked ham. I never liked pork chops. I never liked their bacon. I never liked any of it. So I guess I might have ate it for a year or so, and then I just stopped. I guess when you're not raised on it, or you didn't have an acquired taste for it, it didn't really matter. And so it's a good thing, because you should be eating it anyway. So that was that. But anyway, like I said, I appreciate all of you. I hope that you're reading some of the Bible, or you're getting some of your questions answered. I don't know, you can go to your pastor and discuss things. I know people have a pastor who's willing to sit down and discuss things with them. I just hope that you're able to lean on God to have comfort and calmness in your life. With all the things that are going on, this world is so busy. It seems like you can't sit down and breathe, or you can't relax, because it's just everything going on at once. Take time to breathe. That's what the Lord gave you the Sabbath for, which is Saturday. And if you ask any pastor, Sunday pastor, he will tell you that is on Saturday. People have just been used to it. Was changed to Sunday, and so they're just used to that way. But I just want people to know that, because some people weren't raised and to know that Sabbath is actually on Saturday. That's when I worship. That's when I go to church, when I need to, get support from people who think like me. But most of the time, I spend my time with the Lord, because people in church you can fall sometimes when you're around people, no matter where you are with them, and it's even in church. So that's why I say pray constantly. Remove yourself from negative people, negative TV programs, negative music, uh, just anything negative, because what you feed your brain the most is what stays there. So like if you watch, I have a problem, I like to watch crime shows, and so if you watch them all the time, that's what's going to come up in your brain. So you're wondering why you have nightmares and people are chasing you around with knives, and because that's what you're putting, that, and I'm saying I'm talking about me, in your brain. So if you put positive things, if you put nice things, if you do, that's what's going to absorb into you, and that's going to make you feel better. You're going to get sleep. I didn't used to get sleep because I was being chased all night. I was being terrorized all night, and waking up and going back to sleep and going through the same thing again. So it's also good for your health, serving the Lord. So until next time.